intervention in the civil war in Syria and the barbaric bombardment of Aleppo and other towns, with subsequent huge loss of life. Next, in March 2018, in the English city of Salisbury, there was the poisoning and attempted murder of the former Russian spy, Sergei Skripal, and his daughter Yulia, using a nerve agent. You couldn't find a better, or perhaps that should be a worse metaphor for the toxicity of the Russian regime. This book is an attempt to understand where this regime appeared from and how it got a grip on power. Is it simply a logical continuation of the post-Soviet transition, or is it a sharp break with the script, thanks to the will of one man? Is it a deeply Russian invention, or is it the Russian version of a global trend toward deglobalization and a return to the idea of the nation-state, with its old grievances and unfulfilled ambitions, part of which was the Brexit vote and the election of Donald Trump as president of the USA? Undoubtedly, Vladimir Putin has become the harbinger and the personification of the global return of the state. But on top of this, he turned to the Russian tradition of autocracy, which goes back some 600 years, to the time when the state of Muscovy was established as the successor to the Golden Horde. As a historian, this has been fascinating to observe. I have watched as the traditional forms of power and slavery have returned, totalitarian discourses combined with Soviet figures of speech, the practice of state distribution, and the rituals of class and society. And all of this linking together the Brezhnev period, Stalinism, serfdom, and practices from the time of Ivan the Terrible. The whole history of Russia is being played out before us once again, repeating most of the social, political, and economic matrices that we have known. And it seems as if Russia is once again sliding back into its old historic rut. Under Putin, the first decade of the 21st century was a time when the state returned in all its former glory. The elite enjoyed their privileges while elections were repressed. The law and the ordinary citizen were regarded with disdain. There was the rhetoric of a great state along with wars for an imperial heritage. The key period was Vladimir Putin's third term as president, from 2012 to 2018. This was the time when we saw the repression of the people's protests, which had occurred in the winter of 2011 to 12. The passing of dreadful repressive laws, such as banning foreigners from adopting Russian children, or the outlawing of homosexual propaganda. The annexation of Crimea, wars in Ukraine and Syria, and the waging of an undeclared hybrid war against the West. In short, the portal into the past opened up, and the political arena was taken over by the dinosaurs of autocracy and imperialism. And it was in these years of Putin's third term, alongside the establishment of this revanchist, repressive regime in Russia, that I wrote the essays which make up this book. These are pages from the modern history of Russia, variations on the main theme: the return of the state and its war against different areas of civil, territorial, and symbolic autonomy. This is a chronicle of the state's attack on the individual, the assertion of its sovereign rights on our territory, our body, and our memory. The book is divided into 4 parts, each of which describes one of the wars being waged by the state. 1. The War for Space. From the battles for Moscow's squares and boulevards taking place between the authorities and the protest movement, to the symbolic actions of the gathering in of Russian territory, such as plans to militarize the Arctic. From the post-imperial adventures in Crimea and the Donbass, to the neo-colonial war in Syria. 2. The War for Symbols. The battle for symbolic dominance through various locations, signs, rituals, and performances by the authorities. The Kremlin and Red Square portrayed as sacred sites, military parades and patriotic parks as sanctuaries of sovereignty. Russian strategic nuclear missiles have become one of the main symbols of power, paraded through the streets of Moscow, pictured on popular T-shirts, threatening the West from giant screens during Putin's pre-election speech in March 2018. They have become the symbolic basis for the new Russian self-awareness.